everyone, it's Kelly here from Cuppa, and today I'm going to do a quick little tutorial on how to do a foundation double crochet. It's a really nifty little stitch to learn. It's really good for garments if you need a bit of stretch. It also is very good when you're doing made to measure garments because it's such an accurate warm measurement. Even great for blankets as well, because sometimes when you do a chain you go up a hook size, but for this you don't have to, and like I say, it has got so much stretch to it. So yeah, let's go, let's crack on. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is create a slip knot and attach that to our hook. Now this is personal preference, but I like to chain 3 when I'm doing my foundation double crochet. Other people like to chain 4. I mean, you can try both and see what you think, but I like the chain 3. So that's what I'm going to do in this tutorial. But just know there's no right or wrong way, okay? So if you want to do chain 4, that is absolutely fine. Right, so I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the very first chain that we've just created. We're going to yarn over and we're going to go through that chain through the 2 top loops. Don't just go through 1 loop, you've got to go through 2 loops. So we're going to yarn over, come back to that first chain and go through those top 2 loops. Yarn over and pull up a loop the same height as the loops that are already on your hook. Give it a little wiggle, and then we're going to, well, hang on, sorry, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. You've got 3 loops on your hook. So what we're going to do now is yarn over and just go through the very first loop, and that is like your chain. If you was doing a chain stitch and then working double crochets into it, you've just created the chain there. So now all you've got to do is a double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over and go through the last 2 loops. And that is your first foundation double crochet. That's the beauty of this, is that when you do a foundation row, you're actually doing like the chain and row 1 all at the same time. So where do you go in next? This bit can be a little bit tricky, but once you get the hang of it, you just kind of know. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back on ourselves, because this is like the under part and this is the top part. So your double crochets, let me just pull up a loop a minute, are going to be at the top, and this bottom part here is going to be the chain. We're always working in the bottom, which seems strange, because normally when you do your crocheting, you're like working your way up to the top, which we're kind of doing here anyway. Oh, I don't know, I'm getting myself confused. But anyway, we're working like upside down almost. Okay, I'm probably making this way too more confusing than what it needs to be. Let's crack on, shall we? Doing number 2. So we're going to come to, let's have a look where we're at. There's a bit right here. It's kind of like a V, sort of, if you turn it on itself. It's kind of like the V that you go into when you do your normal stitch, but it kind of crosses over a bit. We are going to go through those top 2 loops. We're not going to pick up any other loops. We're just going to go through the top 2 loops. So again, yarn over, go through these 2 loops. You might need to give it a little wiggle to begin with until you get what you're doing, because I still sometimes have to do that anyway. And then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop the same height as the loops that are already on your hook. The reason we're doing this is it helps to keep the foundation chain area loose, because if it's too tight, it'll end up curving like a rainbow. Now it might still have a bit of a curve to it anyway, but as long as you make sure that that first loop that you're pulling up isn't crazy tight, then it'll be fine. It will all be fine. So now we're going to yarn over and pull through the very first loop only. That's created the chain part, and then now we've got to finish it off like a normal double crochet. So yarn over and come through the first 2 loops, yarn over and come through the last 2 loops. Let's do it again. So now we're going to be working into the next like crossed over V shape. It is kind of like a V shape that's kind of crossed. I don't know how else to explain it. It's going to be these two that we're going through right here. So yarn over, go through the next, I'm going to call it the next stitch, and then yarn over, pull up a loop the same height as the ones that are already on your hook, yarn over and go through the very first loop only, yarn over, go through the next two, yarn over and go through the next two. And again, yarn over, turn your work kind of upside down. Now we're going to be going through this one right here. These two right here. I hope you can see it, but once you like get the hang of it, you just know where to go through. I know to begin with you're a bit like, oh, I don't know. I keep calling it like the crossed V because that's kind of what it reminds me of. Yarn over, pull up a loop the same height as the ones on your hook, yarn over and go through the very first loop, yarn over and go through the next two loops, yarn over and go through the last two loops. Let's do it again. Yarn over and come to your next stitch. As you get along, as you start adding more, you can start to see it a bit more clearly, can't you? 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're now going in the fourth one. So yarn over, wiggle your wiggle your hook through the top two loops only, yarn over, pull up a loop to match the height of your other two loops, yarn over, go through the very first loop only, yarn over, go through the next two loops, yarn over and go through the last two loops. I like to go back and check my stitches and make sure that they're looking okay, which they are at the moment. Because sometimes if you pick up too many loops when you go through the beginning of the stitch, it can start to look a bit strange. So just always go back and check your stitches. Right, let's go again. Yarn over, go through the top two loops only. 1, 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first one only, yarn over, go through the next two, yarn over, go through the last two. And they're so much easier to count as well. So at the minute I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 I've done so far. Let's do a few more. Yarn over. So that, as you can see, this is how it will sit, like this. But we are kind of working upside down, aren't we? We're going into the bottom and it's like bringing the stitch like this is kind of like how we're working. Don't know, it's really hard to explain. The worst person ever for explaining things. Yet again, here we are. Okay, let's yarn over and go through the next stitch through the top two stitches only. This one. Sometimes you kind of have to pull it apart, I find. See, I think I've gone through too many on that one. It's a prime example how easy it is to go through 3 loops rather than just 2. Yarn over and pull up a loose loop. Yarn over, go through the first one only. Yarn over, go through the next 2. Yarn over, go through the last 2. So just keep repeating. Yarn over, go through the top 2 loops. Yarn over and pull up a loose loop. Yarn over, go through the first loop. Yarn over, go through the next 2 loops. Yarn over and go through the next 2 loops, the last 2 loops. And as you can see, it's starting to get bigger. Like so. I'm going to add a few more, then I'll come back and just show you how mine's looking. I've just worked a few more foundation stitches. Just want to show you how mine's looking. See, it does have a little slight curve to it, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. If my stitches would have been tighter, it would have been more like that. So as you can see, this is what it's like relaxed. Stretching it, it's got so much stretch to it. You wouldn't have this much stretch if you was using regular chains, which is why it's really good for clothes, made to measure clothes, because the measurement is a lot more accurate, and also blankets. Lovely way to start off a blanket. Once you get the hang of it, you're going to be like, I am changed. I am forever changed. Or maybe not. Sometimes I do still use chains, to be fair, but no, foundation double crochets, they're really good, and they're really easy to work into if you have to work into the bottom, because look, it's all the V stitches that you're normally used to working in. That's the top, that's the bottom. Yeah, so there we go. Thank you ever so much for joining me on this little tutorial that I've bumbled my way through, absolutely, but hey ho. Hey ho, hey. So hopefully you stick around, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.